She stood right on the gravel path, arms folded, phone already in her hand. "You can't bring that furniture in," she snapped. "This is HOA property." I didn't even have time to answer before she turned her head and shouted, "Dispatch? Yes, I need officers right now. There's a trespasser moving into our lakefront cabin." I froze for a second, the old oak door still halfway open, my couch balanced awkwardly in my arms. She was actually calling the cops on me while I was carrying my own things into my own cabin. I tried to stay calm, but she kept talking loud enough for every neighbor to hear. "He's refusing to pay dues. He doesn't belong here. Arrest him the moment you arrive." My wife stepped out with a box in her hands, shaking her head in disbelief. "Karen, this cabin doesn't belong to your HOA," she said firmly. But Karen didn't flinch. She slapped a bright orange notice on the door, bold letters screaming, "Unsafe structure." I pulled it off, and underneath, I noticed something that made me smirk. Spelling errors, no official stamp, nothing legal about it. Still, she smiled like she had already won. "Doesn't matter. Cops are on their way. You'll regret trying to move in here." She thought she was in control, but the lake, the land, and that cabin held a secret she had no idea about. Blue and red lights flickered across the trees before I even set the couch down. 2 squad cars pulled up, gravel crunching under their tires. Karen waved her hands like she'd summoned them herself. "Officers, over here! That's him! He broke into HOA property! He refuses to leave!" The taller officer stepped forward, hand resting on his belt. "Sir, is this your cabin?" His tone was calm, but Karen cut in before I could answer. "Of course it's not. This cabin is HOA community property, and he hasn't paid a single fee. We want him removed now." My wife held up her phone, already recording. "This cabin isn't part of your HOA," she said. "We bought it directly from the original landowner. Title's in our name." She spoke steady, but I could see Karen's grin stretch wider, like she knew something we didn't. The officer glanced between us, then at the orange notice still crumpled in my hand. He frowned. "Ma'am, this looks fake." But Karen leaned closer, whispering loud enough for me to hear. "They don't know how things work out here. I run this lakefront." That was the moment I decided not to argue. Instead, I pulled a folded document from the box by the porch, thick paper, notarized, with a seal that caught the flashlight beam. "I might want to read this," I said, handing it over. The officer scanned the first line, then stopped. His eyebrows lifted, and he looked back at Karen. "This deed," he said slowly, "shows the entire lakefront doesn't belong to the HOA at all." Karen's face drained of color. That's impossible. That lake is ours. Everyone knows that." But the officer was already shaking his head. "Not anymore." Karen's lips trembled, but she wasn't done. She pulled out her phone again, dialing furiously. "You don't understand. This is illegal. Call the backup. I have the HOA rules. This man is trespassing." Her voice cracked, but carried that same desperate authority she always used to intimidate neighbors. The officers exchanged a glance, quietly whispering. One of them turned to me. "Sir, I suggest you stay calm and let us handle this. Ma'am, do you have legal documents proving this HOA's ownership of the lakefront?" Karen hesitated, fingers hovering over the screen. She stuttered, I have the charter. It proves—" Before she could finish, my wife pointed to the water. "Look!" At the edge of the lake, a small buoy floated with the HOA logo, but the official property survey marker shone in the sunlight. The officers moved closer, and one muttered, "This clearly marks private property. The HOA has no claim here." Karen's face went pale, her phone slipping from her hand. She tried to grab it, but I stepped aside. Then, without warning, a black SUV pulled onto the gravel, its doors swinging open. Out stepped a sharply dressed man holding a legal brief. "I'm here on behalf of the lake's rightful owners, and you, Karen, are hereby banned from all lakefront property until further notice. Trespassing charges will be filed if you enter." Karen froze, looking between the officers, the lawyer, and us. Her voice barely rose above a whisper. This isn't legal." The officer shook his head. "Ma'am, it's all very legal. You're done here." And just like that,
The woman who once acted like she owned the world was stripped of every ounce of power she had clung to. Karen's hands shook as she backed toward her car, muttering curses under her breath. "You can't do this. I run this lake." But no one listened. The officers and the lawyer ignored her, and my wife calmly brought the last box inside the cabin, her phone still recording every second. Suddenly, Karen's phone buzzed. She answered quickly, whispering, then her face contorted with panic. "What do you mean the backup can't come? The sheriff said it's all valid." She slammed the phone down, her nails scratching the dashboard. I leaned on the doorframe watching her unravel. "Looks like your rules don't mean anything here," I said, voice steady. She whipped around, eyes blazing, but I just smiled. Then, a surprising twist. Neighbors started coming out from behind trees and lawns, murmuring and pointing at Karen. One man shouted, "We never signed an HOA agreement for the lake." Another held up papers of his own, showing she had overstepped her authority for years. Murmurs turned into chants, "Banned! Banned!" Karen froze, realizing the entire lakefront community was turning against her. The black SUV man stepped forward, extending a hand to me. "We've documented every move. Any attempt she makes to claim authority will be met with legal action immediately." My wife nodded, still filming, and I felt a wave of relief. But Karen wasn't done. Her mind raced, plotting some next move. Even as she drove away, she glared at us like a storm waiting to hit. That was the moment I knew this wasn't over, but the power had shifted and we had the upper hand.